in there. But there are heterim to do laundry when you have kids. Yeah, there are heterim to do laundry when you have kids.
That's a little problem.
TMI.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that.
There. But there are heterim to do laundry when you have kids. Yeah, there are heterim to do laundry. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's go. We were learning, speaking of turning your underwear inside out, we were learning yesterday about being in the proximity of things that are like tsoa, that are like human waste, or other things that are very particularly smelly. So the Gemara had talked about a certain kind of rock or stone that gets washed up by the river that brings a foul odor with it. And those two, you have to distance yourself 4 amos. We're going to talk more and more about this as we get into the laws of distancing yourself from offensive odors, things that present themselves that are yucky. So you have to show proper honor to your prayers before you recite the Shema. You have to distance yourself 4 amos. And the same thing would be true with your tefillin as well. And we talked about a pig yesterday. Now we're going back to discuss tefillin. We're going to come back to a lot of these topics as we go along. Rabbi Zera b'shem Rabbi Abba bar Yirmiyah. So where are we? We are at the very 4 lines from the bottom. Ochel bahen achilas sarai ve'eno ochel bahen achilas keva. Regarding tefillin, you're allowed to have a snack when you're wearing your tefillin, but you're not allowed to have a sit-down meal when you're wearing your tefillin. Now, the question is, why not? What's wrong with having a sit-down meal when you're wearing your tefillin? The answer is you're going to have an interruption in your thoughts. You're not going to be focused on your tefillin, and we're also concerned you're going to drink wine, and that could cause you to become intoxicated and show dishonor to the tefillin. And the Gemara says, related to that, Yashen bahen shinas sarai ve'ino yashen bahen shinas keva, that you're allowed to sleep in a happenstance way while you're wearing your tefillin, like, put your head down and take a quick cat nap, but you're not allowed to have take a regular sleep, a regular shluf with your tefillin on. Now, we don't paskin this way. This is one of those areas where the Rambam says the Bavli and the Yerushalmi differ. The Bavli says that you're not allowed to have even a quick cat nap while you're wearing your tefillin. So the question, of course, is like, what do you do when you see a bacher putting his head down in the base medrash while he's got his tefillin on?
I'm sure it happens.
It does happen, right? So really, lechatchila, a person shouldn't even take a cat nap while he's wearing his tefillin. He might tell you, well, I'm not really sleeping, I'm just concentrating, I'm thinking. Yeah, right.
Deeply.
Yeah. But we seem to be very machmir about sleep. And we learned before that the concern is that you may fall into a deeper sleep. And then, of course, there may be flatulence and other bodily functions while you're sleeping that would bring dishonor to the tefillin.
So it turns out you meant sleeping?
It's probably a good idea, but you have to know who's approachable and who's not approachable.
Yeah.
Use your common sense. Is tanoye tane. There are those who carried the following brisa with them, meaning they taught the following brisa. Mevarech pam achas and is tanoye tane pa'amayim. That there are some people who had a brisa that says that you make a bracha once a day on your tefillin. In other words, because remember, people used to wear their tefillin the whole day, and so they would only need to make a bracha once on their tefillin. But there's another brisa that says you make a bracha a second time on your tefillin, even though you haven't removed them at all. So how do you reconcile that? So manda amar pam achas nicha umanda amar shemivarch shtei pa'amim ha'achal v'inon iluye. So if you learn that the brisa that says you only make a bracha once, well, that makes sense because you only need to make a bracha once since you're wearing them consistently. But the other brisa that says you make 2 brachos is talking about a guy who went ahead and had a meal while he was wearing his tefillin. And because you're not allowed to have a meal is considered to be an interruption of your focus on your tefillin. even though you're not supposed to, but if you did, we require you to make a second bracha, even though you never took off the tefillin. But we consider it as if there was an interruption in your thoughts about the tefillin because you were focused on your meal.
So how about if somebody you were working, how could you get a set on the film if you're working?
I guess maybe work is not as much of a distraction as the meal, but it's a valid question. The question is, how do you stay focused on your tefillin the entire day when you're going through your regular work day? The Gemara doesn't seem to be as bothered by work as it is by a meal, because a meal maybe isn't more self-indulgent, and you're not really thinking that much about the tefillin. I don't know.
Or it's tefillin all day.
There are a lot of holy people that wore their tefillin all day. Yeah, and
And
so
was it Mitzvah? Who was a Rosh Yeshiva? It was Mitzvah. People came to him and asked him, "Can we wear our tefillin?" And they said, "You become a Rav Cook, you can wear your tefillin all day."
yeah, I know Reb Scheinberg, I think, also of blessed memory, also.
Tzitzis too. You have like 20
Yeah,
pairs of
yeah.
tzitzis.
Listen, when you get to that level, you have to know yourself. Okay.
Not recommend, I'm taking this is not wearing tefillin all day, was not recommended for the average person,
Right.
or was it?
There was a time in the times of the Gemara where we saw this previously, where certain people wore their tefillin the entire day. Remember, we saw Rabbi Yochanan, who didn't want to even take them off when he first came into the bathhouse, because he consistently wore his tefillin as often as possible. We also saw another opinion where the Gemara talked about people who didn't wear their tefillin all day. So it seems like in the times of the Gemara, there were already varying customs.
Right.
But today it's not recommended. I've noticed that there's become a minhag that's become more popular among some yeshiva bacharim, which is to wear the tefillin at mincha. Have you seen that? Yeah.
That's because we're not looking up like Shachri.
No, I'm actually giving these guys.
Put it on just for mincha itself.
Yeah, some actually put it on both at Shacharis and at Mincha because they want to show their endearment for this mitzvah. Okay, listen, that's what the spice of life. They probably have a Rebbe who told them that there's an inyan of putting on the tefillin more than one time in the course of the day.
I'm trying to understand, if the idea is concentration.
Yeah, there's
And you
not.
should
There's,
be able to have concentration for 15 minutes.
it's true. It's true. You should be able to. And so there's no reason why you can't put on the tefillin. Look, I grew up in an environment that flaunting piety by doing publicly more than what most people do is considered to be a negative thing. That's the way that's the value that I grew up with so.
I certainly hear that. I'm curious as to why it ceased. In other words, originally, people stopped wearing it all day long because they were engaged in other work. But why did they stop wearing it before it became
Because once you put it on once in the day, you were yotze. You finished your mitzvah for that day. That's the standard standard idea.
He's bought to make a second bracha and we put it back on.
Yeah, you have to make a new bracha. Chobin.
What's the origin of the word tefillin? I think it's tefillah. No.
It's a good question. I think it is related to tefillah, but I don't know what the origin of the word is. Someone better do a chat GPT deep dive. Yeah. But the Torah doesn't. The Torah never calls them tefillin. It's a rabbinic word, and I don't know why the rabbis use that particular word, because yeah, right. It could be that was the association that the rabbis were going for. I don't know. It's a very good question. Okay, so that's the way to reconcile it.
It does say tefillah. This is the way it comes from the name from tefillah. So tefillah to fill it. This is a straightforward connection.
But I don't know why. I don't know why tefillin is related.
Or for the word pilel. You give a word pilel to judge.
Yeah, but again,
Allow.
no, I understand what pilel means, but There doesn't seem to be a readily apparent connection from a biblical standpoint. The Torah says that they shall be a sign on your head and on your arm. Now, it is interesting that we know the Gemara says that you should have your tefillin on when you recite the Shema, because you don't want to be giving false testimony when you're reciting the verses that connect to the commandment to wear the tefillin. You should have the tefillin on you. Is that a possible connection? I'm not sure.
It also says totopos means two in foreign language.
Yeah. So they're quoting a Gemara, but the word specifically tefillin is something that really requires a little bit of
You
expansion.
mentioned you can have a snack while you have your tefillin on. Remember by Burgers made a comment when he was here about having people, let's put having a coffee while they're davening, and I we talked about it. He said he didn't know where that.
No. I wasn't. Here's the thing. In principle, I agree with Rabbi Weinberger. I think there's a certain amount of, I don't want to call it arrogance, but what I would call it is maybe chutzpah, but even that's too strong. I think when a person brings a coffee into shul while they're davening, it shows
Not learning.
no.
Learning you need it.
No. I'm not talking about davening. I mean learning. I'm talking about when you're bringing in a coffee into davening, you're showing a certain comfort level
Yes.
of like, this is my bedroom,
It's true.
or this is my living room. And it sort of takes away a little bit of the reverence from the place.
Yeah.
So that's where he was coming
Yeah.
from. My only critique was, I think he hit a sour note with the audience. Like, when you're a guest speaker, sometimes it's a bit discordant to come in to a community where you're not the resident and tell people that this is how you feel. So I don't know how it was received. That was the only thing that I was pointing out. But I think he's right.
Yes.
I do feel it's a little bit off in some way to when you see someone come in to the Beis Medrash with a coffee and sit down and start davening. Now, the truth is, in fairness, there may be a person who has a sore throat, so they're bringing a tea with them because they need to drink and to lubricate their vocal cords so that they can daven properly. So you have to judge people favorably. But if a guy does it every single morning, because in a lot of places, and by the way, this will be the trend at the Bayit. I guarantee you, at some point, a donor is going to come forward and donate this huge coffee and tea making apparatus that'll be available at the entrance to the Turk Beis Medrash. Like right now, we do it on the cheap. We have just a hot water urn.
You have to earn it. Right?
Yeah, there you go. So someday this is the trend, because all of the popular minyan places have these.
Yeshivas have it also.
The yeshivas have it. The kollels have it. These davening factories have it, and then there's a little fridge, and then with the milk, and then different flavors of milk, and the almond milk, and the non-fat milk, and the soy milk, and the non-dairy creamer with the flavors, the Irish cream, and the hazelnut, right? And there's going to be and there's going to be a lot of that, just because that's the trend.
Thank
That,
you.
What would you rather have, no coffee or no talking?
I'd rather have no talking, for
Absolutely,
sure.
because it's not disruptive to
Yeah,
other people.
but it's not an either or prospect. It's just that as I'm just reflecting upon the level of luxury that we've become accustomed to, and that's the new generation. It's just, it is what it is. And I see, sometimes I hear myself talking and I say, what an old-fashioned, fuddy-duddy you are. Okay, but in any event.
If you were meeting with Trump, you wouldn't take your own cup of coffee in the Oval Office with you.
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
I mean,
And even if they offered you a cup of coffee, it would depend if the president having a cup.
right.
Abishter, you having a cup of coffee? I'll join you.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So therefore, Amar Rebbe Zera just adds a rejoinder to that that the first brisa is therefore Kaime Rebbe Abba Bar Yirmiyah, Ba'oichel Bahen Achila Sarai. You could say that the first brisa, which says you only make one bracha, is when you're having a snack. Because as we said before, having a snack is not considered to be a hesech hadas. It's not considered to be a significant interruption in your thoughts. And therefore, the two brises are really complementing each other in that sense. One brise is, they're both talking about eating. One brise is talking where you have a snack. So therefore, you only need to make one bracha, and you don't have to make another bracha after you finish eating. And the other is talking about a full sit-down meal. Now, we have another statement of Reb Zera in the name of Rabbi Abba Bar Yirmiyah regarding tefillin. Rabbi Zera b'shem Rabbi Abba Bar Yirmiyah lo yikanes adam lebeis hamayim usfaro v'tfilav biyadav. A person may not enter into a privy, meaning into a bathroom. Now, the Gemara here doesn't call it a beis hakisei. The Gemara here calls it a beis hamayim. And the reason is because you're going to urinate. You're not going to defecate. And there's a big difference between the two, because when you're just going to urinate and you're going to an area where people just urinate, so there's not the same level of stench that with a place where people defecate. And as a result, you're allowed to continue having your tefillin in your hands while you're going to urinate. Now, as we'll see, there was a real concern that if we didn't allow you to keep your tefillin with you, the tefillin would get stolen or damaged. Today, and this is brought in the poskim, when we have indoor plumbing and we have bathrooms in our homes and in our workplaces, you're never allowed to bring your tefillin into the washroom, even though arguably our washrooms are not beis hakiseis, but rather are beis hamayims.
Yes.
Because even though we defecate in our bathrooms, but the water washes away everything. So there's no real significant stench in our modern day bathrooms. But nevertheless, the poskim have ruled that you're never allowed to bring your tefillin into the bathroom. But here in the ancient world, where typically you would go out into the field to urinate or to defecate, and you go to a place to urinate, and if we tell you you got to take off your tefillin, someone may come by, run off with them, and we're going to see this discussion unfold as we go along. Rabbi Yochanan kad have a sifra biyadeh, when Rabbi Yochanan, and so it's referring to either a sefer or your tefillin. You can hold on to them. So he says you're not allowed to walk to urinate if you've got a sefer or your tefillin in your hands. That's his statement. However, Rabbi Yochanan kad have a sifra biyadeh, have a yahiv le lechoran, kad have yitfiloe iloye have a koyim bone. That Rabbi Yochanan, we remember he was really, really intense on insisting to keep his tefillin on as often as possible. When he would have a sefer in his hands and he needed to urinate, he would go and give his sefer to somebody else. But when he had his tefillin on him, he would continue to wear them. He would even keep them on, and he would urinate with them. So and it seems like Rabbi Yochanan is disagreeing with Rabbi Abba Bar Yirmiyah, because Rabbi Abba Bar Yirmiyah says you got to take off your tefillin. So let's see.
Would a Sefer Torah be more higher kedusha than a Sefer Kodesh?
Interesting question. The Gemara here doesn't make a distinction because all Sfarim were written on cloth with ink, handwritten. There was no printing presses, and so when we say a sefer, we really mean a sefer Torah or a chumash, a cloth for the Nevi'im. It's all the same from the perspective of the Gemara.
We say to you, though, when you're in the airport and you have your tefillin in your carry-on, you can take it into the bathroom because it's covered.
Yeah, so we're going to learn about covers. We're going to learn about that also. The Gemara is going to be discussing that. The general rule is in halacha, as long as your tefillin is double wrapped, you're allowed to walk into an unclean place with your tefillin. And the same thing is true with any holy writ. A lot of times people walk around with holy scripture in their wallet. Someone, let's say a makubal gives you a mezuzah, and he says, walk around this with this wherever you go. So you have to be careful to make sure that it's double wrapped, because otherwise you wouldn't be allowed to walk into the bathroom. Some people have a mezuzah around their neck. That brings its own questions, right? You'd have to make sure that the tefillin is always double wrapped. It can't just be in the, even if it's not a kosher mezuzah, but it's got God's name on it. So you'd have to make sure that it's double wrapped if you ever walk into
But
a
it doesn't
bathroom
matter
with
whether
it.
it's printed or handwritten.
Wouldn't make a difference, yeah. Now, Masnisa Pliga al Rabbi Abba Bar Yirmiyah, Nichnas Adam lebeis hamayim utfilav biyada. So the following brisa disagrees with Rabbi Abba Bar Yirmiyah, who says you cannot walk in. He said it's totally fine to walk in to urinate with your tefillin in your hands, at least, because this brisa says that you are allowed to nichnas adam. Sorry. The brisa that we're going to see does disagree. Oh, sorry. So Rabbi Abba Bar Yirmiyah was the one who says you should not go in with the tefillin on when you go to urinate. But the brisa, in which this seems to be what Rabbi Yochanan relied upon, disagrees with that because it says you are allowed to go in with your tefillin in your hand. Amar Rabbi Zeira, Kaima Rabbi Abba Bar Yirmiyah. Rabbi Abba Bar Yirmiyah will tell you that you know what that brisa is referring to? Kan biyachol l'lovshan, kan kisheinu yachol l'lovshan. He says it all depends on what kind of scenario we're dealing with. The brisa says that the brisa which says that it's okay for you to go in is where there's time left in the day for you to still wear the tefillin. Since, let's say you walk into the bathroom where it's almost the end of the day. So if by the time you finish urinating, it'll already be sunset by the time you walk out of the bathroom, then we tell you that there's no point in you wearing your tefillin into the bathroom because you're done already. You're going to be done with the mitzvah momentarily anyway. But what I'm talking about, where it's permissible to walk into that's what I'm talking about. The brisa, which says that you are allowed to walk in, is, let's say it's in the middle of the day, where by the time you finish urinating, there's still going to be plenty of time to keep the tefillin on. There, the brisa is lenient, and it says that since you are going to be continuing to wear the tefillin, we don't require you to take it off. He says, Dilachain, he says, because if we don't say that, mitzvah lo avid bon, lama hu mevazelon. He says, because if it's at the end of the day, and this was my argument, says Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba, you're just about finished with the mitzvah. By the time you get out of the bathroom, there's no more mitzvah to put on to wear the tefillin because it'll already be sunset. What justification would you have to lower the prestige of the tefillin by bringing it into a bathroom if you're going to have to take it off right afterwards anyway? So therefore, that's what I was talking about, says Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba. You know why I tell you not to wear your tefillin when you go to urinate? Is because if you're going to have to take it off right afterwards anyway, what's the point? You might as well take it off before you go in so that you don't end up bringing dishonor to the tefillin. But if it's in the middle of the day, he says, I agree. You can walk in with it, and it's not clear from the Gemara whether it's in. It seems like he was saying, well, it's in your hands. It sounds like he still requires you to take it off, and urinate. But Rabbi Yochanan kept it on and urinated. So that's the point that's a little bit unclear from the Gemara.
Is it more respectful not to be wearing it, but be holding it? Why is
It would be more respectful to just hold it in your hands. At least you're covering it in your hands.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see when we get to the end of this discussion, we'll see how the Gemara comes out. Now, the Gemara now talks about what was the whole heter originally to let you walk into the bathroom with your tefillin. Barishona hayu nosnin osam l'chavereim. Because originally, anytime a person would want to use the bathroom for urinating, he would just take off his tefillin and give it to his friend. But v'hayu notlin osamu borchem. But there were times when these so-called friends would just run off with the tefillin. And it's really curious because in one place the Gemara calls tefillin an inexpensive mitzvah, but you also see here that tefillin was something that
Stolen, so that
was stolen and expensive. So it's really unclear how to reconcile that.
You're talking about Jews or non-Jews stealing?
It sounds like Jews.
Why would a non-Jew still?
It sounds like Jews.
Make money.
But he's not, he's gonna sell it to a Jew?
Yeah,
When is a Jew gonna buy it?
But a religious Jew so-called steals the film doesn't make sense to me.
I agree. In today's world, it makes no sense. So, therefore, hiskinu sheyehu menichin bechorin. But then the rabbis made an arrangement. You know what you should do? Whenever you encounter a urinal house, take off the tefillin and put it in these little holes that we've left on the exterior of the building, specifically for the purpose of putting your tefillin there. At least that way, if there's no one there, you don't have to worry that someone's going to run off with them. Maybe you stick them in, they're not that visible, and you don't have to worry about people are going to steal your tefillin. But But finally, the Gemara says that even that they changed. Why? Because there was a certain incident that occurred. What was the incident? The Gemara doesn't relate the incident, but the Gemara in the Bavli does refer to it. The Gemara says that there was once a student in the Beis Medrash who had to urinate, went to the urinal house, took off his tefillin, stuck it into the little hole in the wall, and a prostitute came along, found the tefillin, ran off with it, and then she came to the Beis Medrash and she said, "Oh, one of your students just paid me for my services with this tefillin." They found out who the student was, and he was so distraught that his reputation was marred that he committed suicide, jumped off a rooftop and killed himself. So the rabbi said, because of that, we're going to now allow people to go into the bathroom with their tefillin. So you can have the tefillin in the bathroom. So that was the story. Not a very pleasant story. Okay. Well, cautionary tale also, I guess. Yeah. So the Gemara now is going to quantify the heter, right? Rabbi Yaakov bar Acha b'shem Rabbi Ze'era Omar, v'hu bayom sheyehei bayom kidei l'lovshem. Like we said before, it's only that we allow you to walk into the urinal with your tefillin on, so long as you still have time to wear them when you come out of the bathroom. Avalim ein bayom kidei l'lovshan aser. But he says, but if there's no time left, by the time you finish urinating, it's already going to be sunset, then we don't allow you to bring them into the bathroom. Like we said before, since there's no longer any time to wear it when you come out, there's no longer a mitzvah to do, what justification can we give for you to bring dishonor to them? So apparently, this was a qualified heter. In other words, yes, it would be best if you never had to go into the bathroom with your tefillin. We do understand that hanky-panky can take place with your tefillin if you take it off and leave it somewhere. Either someone will steal it or someone will bring dishonor to your reputation. And so we understand, we're compassionate, but that's only provided that you can still wear your tefillin once you come out of the bathroom, because there's still plenty of time left in the day. Now, what's the best way to bring so we'll hold it here for today, and Mirz Hashem, we'll continue this on Monday. So have a great Shabbos, everybody, and let's hope that next year, no more Tisha B'Av. We'll all be in Yerushalmi. Okay.
It was a big program.
It was a
Great program.